Thanks, Ridhima. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Rohini Gaonkar. I'm a senior developer advocate with AWS, and it is my honor to moderate this panel discussion on thinking like a leader. And it gives me an immense pleasure to welcome all our esteemed guests joining us from different time zones across APJ itself. So let me introduce you to Anna Green, the head of SMB sales APJ, Ekta Parashar, who is the head of enterprise solutions architects in India, and Karmin Jah Jah, who's head of training and certification marketing team for APJ itself. Hello, ladies. Thank you for joining us for this session.
Hi, lovely to be here.
Awesome.
It's great to be here. Good to be here, Rohini, and everybody else.
Hey, thank you for joining. So first things first, all three of you are leading and managing some very big teams in AWS, within AWS, right? And definitely we would love to get some inspiration and hear from you, your journey on how did you reach this level of success given our industry's gender gap, especially in leadership role. So let's start with the alphabetical order. Anna, would you like to go first?
Thank you. First of all, I want to say it is an absolute privilege to be here with you and also with my esteemed panel members. I love having conversations like this with female leaders because it's so apparent to me working here at AWS that there is so much amazing female talent out and about doing some amazing things, driving some great business outcomes. So excited to be here. My journey is an interesting one. I am not someone who has come from a technical background, but that has not stopped me from carving a path in business and in leadership. I started as a lawyer a long time ago in Sydney, and by fortune, chance, opportunity, and an ability to think differently, I moved across into banking. And from there, I became the chief risk officer and then the chief executive officer of a bank. So I spent several years being the CEO of a bank in ASEAN and here in Southeast Asia. And then I was very fortunate enough to have been asked to come and join AWS to run their ISV and digital native business. So I did that for 18 months and I'm now running the SMB business. So a very kind of different journey to a lot of people who work here at AWS. But what I've learned in the time that I've been here is we have an amazing cross section of people. And it's the reason why it's such an exciting place to work, because just in my team alone last year, I had someone who had finished a PhD in laser physics and someone else who was 22 years old and just come straight out of university doing economics and nothing at all to do with technology. But all together, we sat around the table and did some really interesting stuff, learning about our customers and building some amazing solutions. So in short, that's me. And again, thank you so much for having me join.
Thank you so much, Anna. I'll move on to Ekta. Ekta, we would also love to hear from you.
Rohini, first of all, absolutely inspiring to hear about Anna every time I meet her in these panel discussions. Just quickly talking about myself, it's been 23 years that I have been in the tech industry. And I joined, or rather I started my career as a developer. I think most of us in the tech industry would have started that. Started with developer, worked on over a period of time and then moved to different organizations. But one of the forte which I hold is working with enterprise customers in India. And I joined AWS around 6.5 years back. I joined as one of the first enterprise solution architect in India team. And from there on, have built an enterprise business. And now, as we are talking, super proud of the team and what we as what we together have built across the enterprise business in the last few years. Back to you, Rohini.
Wow, thank you. Definitely an applause. And last but not the least at all, Karmin, we would love to hear from you as well.
Thank you. And it is such a pleasure to be here. I'm going to be honest and say I haven't done many of these sorts of sessions before, so it's an absolute privilege and honour to be here. My background, I've been in the tech industry for over 20 years, predominantly in marketing roles and across various companies within the industry, but I actually started my career in customer service. So one of my first jobs when I came out of study was actually managing a customer service team in a telco company out here in Australia. And then somehow I kind of fell into marketing and really found that it was something that I was so passionate about. And just from that footing, I was able to retain and grow in my roles within the industry and then move around within the industry. So it's something that I've really built, I think, from scratch, and had a lot of mentors and coaches along the way that have really helped me, and advocates. And it's such a privilege now to be part of, long-standing in the tech industry and be part of something which is so special that we do every day.
Definitely. I mean, all three of you have such different starts, and then it's amazing to see you spend decades actually in the industry itself. So I just want to know from you, like, why do you think personally it's important for women to join the tech industry? I know we still talk about a lot of gap in the gender ratio in the tech industry itself. What are your thoughts on why do you think it's important for women to join the tech industry? And I'll start with Ekta this time, and I will go around the table as well.
Absolutely, but Rohini, it's absolutely a great question. But at the same time, I'm going to say that why women should not be in the tech industry, right? If you look at it, women are there across all the different industries, right? From civil services to defense industry and different kind of roles, right? So definitely, and tech is also a very, very important domain which we have. I think 2 or 3 perspectives which I would like to add why we should be looking at having women in the tech industry. The first one is, I'm sure all of us acknowledge in this panel that women come with very, very diverse thinking and diverse backgrounds and the solutions which they can come up with, right? So having a very varied and different perspective about whether it's about understanding a problem or whether even if it's about coming up with a solution of a problem, I think women bring something very different on the table. That's the first part. The second important part, which I'm going to say, is that if you look at the tech industry, it's basically our generation who is going to carve out or rather pave out the path for the next generation. So the work which we are doing as women or as human beings or as people, this work is going to get surpassed by the next generation of the people who are going to come, right? And whether women is going to play a very important role. And third important thing is, when I was growing up in my career, I always used to look up for role models in the industry, right? And they used to inspire me to what I need to do. And it's important that for our younger generation, we create role models across all the industries so that they are encouraged to take up these different kind of roles across different industries.
Definitely. Definitely. I mean, all three of you are role models for me as well. And I'm still in the industry, and hopefully we'll have more and more role models in the industry. Karmin, do you have anything to add to that?
Oh gosh, I agree with all of those points. I think from my perspective, what I feel is quite unique in what we can bring as well is the ability to really dismantle old beliefs and create something which is really new and be part of building something which has a vision for the future. And I think to the point earlier, I think that unique perspective and the experience that we can bring into that will just continue to kind of raise the bar and create, better things in the industry and for the future of many young women as well in the industry.
Definitely. And Anna, do you have any points to add?
Very well summarised by both of my colleagues and friends on the panel. The thing that I often lead with, and I think it's really important in this conversation to lead with this, is that there is a very strong business imperative for us to have women in our organisations and women as leaders. And it's not just a nice thing to do. It's also not just the right thing to do, which it is. It's the right thing for our customers. So if we use our customer obsession mantle, our leadership principle around customer obsession, which we always do here at AWS, that's what we lead with. So our customers are 50%, 100% of the world, and 50% of them are women. So if you're going to build a product that is supposed to be accommodating the best possible outcome for your customer, you must have the most diverse perspective when you're building it. So it is, and what we know for sure, and a lot of data backs this up, McKinsey, BCG and the like, is that diverse leadership tables create better and more diverse and more profitable business outcomes, simply because they are being built by people who represent the customers in your community. It's a very simple model for me. And even though, as I said, personally, I believe that it's the right thing to do, it's also the right thing to do for your customers.
Wow. I mean, working backwards from your customers, and it's so simple, right? Like your customers are made of a diverse population. So why not, when you're creating something for the customers, make it from a diverse perspective as well? I mean, that cannot be made more simple to understand for anyone else, definitely. But coming back to your leadership, because you are leaders and you've been leading teams, there's a question that a lot of times, and these are some of the questions we've seen from the community itself, that what is your experience, right? Walking the fine line between being an assertive leader and being a bossy person, because at times we as females are being looked at being bossy when we are actually being assertive. So what advice do you have for the women trying to walk that line? Anna, you raised your hand, definitely.
I have to answer this, because when I saw this question, it's such a wonderful question, and I know that it's coming from the right place, which is often we ascribe to stereotypes around the way that women behave and around the way that men behave. But what I would say is this: if a woman is positing a point of view in a meeting, I would suggest that the people in the meeting who might view her as bossy potentially are having some of their own internal biases, because think again as to whether or not you would have that question, or ask yourself that question, if that point of view was coming from a man. And so even in the questions that we're asking, we are creating a stereotype there. And so for me, it's really important to say, well, you know, just because a woman has an opinion doesn't mean she's bossy. You also have to be empathetic and human in the way in which you communicate. And that's consistent with, regardless if you're a man or a woman, you should be respectful and professional at all times. So I would suggest that the whole kind of trope of being bossy and being a woman is something that we probably need to think differently about, and make sure that we are not applying an internal bias to that, especially when you've got, you know, a woman at the table who's trying to have an opinion and articulate that. And we know that it's much harder for women to do that, and they are learning to do it. But we can all help women on that journey by not applying that particular stereotype to the conversation.
Definitely. I definitely agree to that 100%, because at times, and definitely you are in roles where you have to be taking a stand at a point, right? And you cannot just be vague about some things. You have to take a stand about this or that, and this is the direction we are going through. But even as an individual, I as a leader that we all are in AWS, it is at times there is like, am I being too much of disagree and commit? Am I showing my backbone? There's always this internal hurdle that I have with my own self. And definitely, I think what your points are with that makes sense. Anyone else? Karmin, Ekta, do you want to add?
I would just add, I absolutely love the point that you've just made, Anna, and it's absolutely true. Like, the question itself kind of creates that bias in the conversations. So what I always come back to is the fact that just continue to be courageous, because I know in the back of our minds sometimes, or through the corner of our eye, we might see someone react, or, you know, have a sense of what people may be thinking or how they've reacted. But I would just really encourage us to continue to be courageous and continue to push our point of view, or share our point of view. And, you know, something that I've personally learned and had to develop over time is, even if my voice is quivering, like I have this sense of fear, that I will push through anyway, and I will speak my truth, or speak, you know, my point of view, and just be comfortable in that discomfort. And that for me has been a massive growth opportunity. And yeah, I would just continue to encourage people to do that. And when they do identify that bias, call it out. And it doesn't have to be in a disrespectful way. It can be in a very respectful way, but just call it out, and don't take on other people's judgments. Like what they're thinking or how they're feeling is important, absolutely, but it's not our burden to carry, and that's not something we should take on. Always kind of sit in your own truth and your values and your power.
Definitely, definitely. And just a shout out, Ekta has been my mentor for some of the programs that we have internally, and she has given me similar feedback as well. Like, Rohini, don't worry, you have to show your backbone. And she has given me these feedbacks as well. And Ekta, this is your chance to share it with the world, because I have definitely got a lot of feedback from you.
Yeah, sure, Rohini, and it has been my pleasure to mentor you as a part of some of those programs. So my perspective is that I think as women, we have very high emotional quotient, right? If you look at it, we as women are pretty good in ensuring that we are inspiring our teams, and at the same time, we are really challenging our teams to create, to rather think big or set really high standard goals for our teams, right? And in the process, if we are being judged and it happens quite a number of times that we are being judged more because we are women. And if it happens, then we should have enough conviction. We should be like Karmin said, right? We need to be very vocal about some of these things and ensure that we are not shying away from calling out what is right and what is wrong. And that you build it by having enough conviction in yourself. So I would encourage all of us to ensure that that conviction piece is something which can really help you grow as a leader. And at the same time, be very open to say that, okay, this particular philosophy, which I was earlier believing in, doesn't work now. So be open to get your beliefs also being proved wrong if you get enough kind of a data point. So in my view, being judged is normal. We still have some work to do as communities to ensure that women are not being so judged about what they are demanding, what they are asking from their teams or from their colleagues or from everybody else.
Definitely. I mean, yes, we have to work together. And that's why that question was so important. And I keep seeing these kind of questions from the community, not just from external. And we have these groups internally as well. And there was one more question that came in, and I thought, which other place can I ask this question? Because I know this question is not just for a particular company or a particular group of people. This is faced by a lot of them. And that's why, and I'll first start with Ekta for this question, is in certain situations where we have seen other party or the second party that we are talking to insist on addressing a male person or a more junior member, even because they are male, or even if they are from a sales background or something of your team, instead of addressing to you. How do you deal with this? And this has happened with a lot of my fellow solutions architects, and I'm sure you must have heard this from others, that at times it is, even being a female tech solutions architect, at times customers have this different perspective, and as I said, stereotyping into non-tech roles. So what is your thought? Like, how do you deal with these kind of situations, and what guidance would you give?
Yeah, it happens all the time, Rohini. And while it has not happened so much with me, but I know a few of the colleagues, few of the other women team members across the different organizations who have approached me, coming to me and asking for advice that people think I don't get opportunity to kind of go and speak. So there are one or two things. I think the first and the foremost, and I will have a different strategy with customers, and being a part of the sales and marketing organization, we work very differently with our customers compared to internal teams. So first of all, with customers, I think it's important that we earn their trust. And you earn their trust, like Anna and Karmin mentioned, right? Stereotyping is one of the things. And I remember in one of my earlier organization, one of my colleague who was a sales leader, and when she used to speak to some of the exec customer, and she was a little tiny person, but when she used to speak to some of the person, the customers execs used to think, are we really talking to the right person? But then over a period of time, I know that the same set of customers, after 1 year of time, they were trusting her more than anybody else in the organization, because she was able to kind of win their hearts by her work, by what is required to support the customers, by getting the required help, guidance, whatever was required by the customer. So changing that will take time with the customers. But internally, I would suggest that we as women, and this is something one of my learning, and I was not really good in it. But one of the leaders in AWS gave me this feedback, very initial at the start of the year, that in my one-on-one conversation, you come up with really some great ideas, but I don't see you being vocal in some of the large meetings. And I took up that feedback very, very seriously. And that feedback really helped me change a lot of things about myself, right? So the most important thing is, even if a colleague or a person is not really directing a question to you, let that individual address or let that individual finish his response or her response, and then raise your hand and be vocal and ensure that you're speaking in that meeting. You are telling your point of view. And if you really strongly believe about a particular point, where the discussion is all about, ensure that you're raising that point of view. Don't keep yourself mum in these meetings. It's very, very important to if you have a seat on the table, you better speak. That's how I'm going to put it down. And that's my advice to all the women who are in the tech industry, not just the tech industry, but even across.
Definitely. I mean, I've been blessed with good managers in my life. I've been here for more than 7.5 years. And definitely, I was a junior when I joined the company as well. And similar feedback I received as well. Like, you have good ideas. It's just that you're not sharing it with the wider team. You're joining the meetings and sitting in some corner in the back. But you do have good ideas. And until you voice it out, no one's going to notice that you definitely have those. So definitely a good point there, Ekta. Anna, do you want to add anything there? And I'll come to Karmin after that.
Yeah, look, what I would say is, when you are going into meetings where you do have a point of view, be prepared. And then when you are prepared, make sure that you articulate your opinion early in the conversation. A lot of times what you can find in these meetings is that your opinion may actually align with other people in the meeting, whether it be a man or a woman. So it's not really a gender thing. It's actually more about women learning to back themselves, have a point of view, and bring it to the table early in on the conversation. That's been the real challenge I think I've seen women face. So to your point, Ekta, women are coming into meetings and having these great ideas, and sometimes being the architect of them. So creating the presentation, but allowing someone else to do the presentation for them. And that's no way to let people in the team know who you are and what ideas you have and what you're capable of. So be prepared before you go into those meetings, and be prepared to have a conversation. And to Karmin's point, when you first start doing that, it is scary. And just acknowledge that. It is quite scary to be in a room of experts and be the first person to speak. But once you do it again. And you practice it, and sometimes you're not going to get it right, but more times than not, people will take you seriously. So if you're prepared and you have the data to be able to lead a conversation, you are going to be seen in a professional light, and ultimately that's what all of us want to do, to be respected for our professional opinions and drive a conversation forward. So that would be my advice to women out there. Be prepared, and don't be scared of having a point of view early in the conversation.
Definitely. I mean, having data-driven opinions is definitely a good thing to have. Like, collect your data, be prepared of what points you're going to have, and prove it that why do you say what it is. And definitely, I mean, then no one is going to be able to have a bias against it.
And what I would also add to that, if somebody challenges you, don't take offense. It's fine. that's part of the conversation of learning. So if somebody doesn't agree with your point of view, that's actually good. It means that they're testing your thoughts, and you can learn and you can be curious and you can learn. You don't need to be offended if somebody doesn't agree with your opinion. What you can do is take it on board and have a point of view. You can go back with, actually, I agree, or do you know what, I don't have the data, let's take it offline. You don't need to take it personally. Business is business. Right. Everybody is trying to do the right thing. So, and again, you know, if you take that point of view with your colleagues, you're more likely to feel like you're part of a team and a collaborative effort to build and grow a business. So, yeah, be prepared to have a conversation, and it doesn't matter if people don't agree with you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Karmin,
I absolutely agree with all of the points. And as I think about it, we're really leaning into building that credibility and trust. And the only, I guess, additional thing I would say is, and we just touched on it a little bit, is to actually be curious in the meetings. So yeah, go in prepared, have a point of view, but also be prepared to ask questions and to really engage with the group in the room and just demonstrate that level of curiosity. I think that also can help to add to that credibility and trust kind of being built out with the room as well. So yeah, I think we've covered some really, really good points here.
Definitely. And just to add a point of mine is for the male allies, is there anything you want to say? For I've worked with some amazing male allies for women in tech, and initially when I was a solutions architect, I was so young and I was going into meetings, and if this kind of situation would ever happen with me, I know my colleagues would say, hey, I'm a salesperson, this is the tech person, and you should definitely route these questions to her. And they would definitely, pump us or would give us that motivation that, no, don't worry, even if that is happening, we are here for you and we are rooting for you. And after a while, when you, as Ekta mentioned, as you work with these customers over time, they understand that, hey, yes, this person is being hired to do this job, and they know their job, they know their tech well, and definitely this is a person you're going to trust. It's just that initial bias, I think, which comes from both the sides. Even we judge ourselves so much that we are not confident in ourselves. And I think that is what I take from this discussion with three of you, is that we have to stop being judgmental to ourselves, be confident and be prepared and not take it personally. I think that's what I say. Definitely. Awesome. So now I would like to ask a little bit about leadership, because you three are leaders. And so what are these qualities or leadership principles you think are necessary for women to be in the leadership role? And this is something I'm going to be taking notes about, because I do definitely see myself hopefully somewhere where you are. So I'll start with Karmin. What qualities or leadership principles you think are necessary for women to be in a leadership role?
Oh, I think for me, it's really anyone in a leadership role really has to hold a high level of integrity. And what I mean by that is really bringing their authentic selves into the role and leading with that integrity around their values and who they actually are. And I truly believe when someone can be that authentic and just be honest and truthful, that really helps them to shine as an individual and really build trusted relationships and connections, I think, with the organisation and their team members within the team itself. For me, that's kind of one of the most important, I think, values or traits of a leader. I think the other really important aspect is really having a level of respect and creating a safe environment where people can really feel comfortable in bringing in their ideas and diverse perspectives and really challenging each other around some of those as well. I think that sort of environment really encourages growth, not just for the individual, but also for the team and the business. And having the opportunity, as a leader, to be able to create that environment within my own team and then collaborate across teams and create spaces and meetings or conversations where we can all come together and solve problems and ideas is just so important. And I think when everyone brings their true selves into that, it really does, I think, lift everyone and lift the team.
Yeah, nothing is more attractive than being the real you rather than being a fake you, right? So people do get attracted to being a genuine human being
Yeah.
rather than someone who's just faking it. Definitely agree there. Anna, what are your thoughts? What are these qualities you look for?
Yeah, just doubling down on what Carmen said. And I like to lead this type of question with an example of the way that we used to look at what a successful leader looks like. And I know this because of the various different courses I've done, having been the CEO of a bank, which you need to go through kind of various different leadership and executive programs. I'm sure that both of the ladies have also gone through this. So historically, the way that people used to choose CEOs of organizations was through a Harvard Business School methodology, which measured you against one pillar, which was achievement, and then the middle pillar, which was collaboration, and then the final pillar, which was power. Now, that used to look like something called an executive tick. So the person who was the leader was going to be motivated by achievement, kind of halfway up the pillar. Motivated by collaboration, didn't really matter that much. Motivated by power, all the way at the top. So it looks like a tick. This was the way that we used to choose leaders, and people would genuinely go out to the market and look for people who had those characteristics. What we know now is that in organizations, to build for success and for the workforce of today, leaders need to look like still achievement is important. Collaboration has to be your highest pillar, and power doesn't matter as much. So that profile has completely changed. And I see that in the way that I've seen the industries that I've worked in build and grow. What I see is people who are authentic, exactly what Carmen just said, people who are leading with integrity, and people who put people and culture first are the ones that are most successful as leaders. Now, whether or not that's kind of trickling up is a different conversation. I see it starting to happen, and that gives me a lot of faith. And the reason it gives me a lot of faith for women is that I know that women naturally pivot to that leadership style, and I've seen them pivot to that leadership style. So I like that. And for me, it's about earning trust with the people that you work with, because you can't do anything unless the people around you want to go on that journey with you. So people who are authentic, who collaborate, who care about the people around them genuinely, the culture in which they work, and the communities in which they operate are the people, in my view, who make the best leaders.
Wow. I mean, this is so amazing. The way you put it is definitely amazing. I'm going to go back and take a lot of notes, and I'm definitely going to connect with you as well. Like, we should have these discussions. I'm so glad we are doing this. Ekta, coming to you, what are these qualities or leadership principles you think are necessary?
I can't tell you how much I agree to Carmen and absolutely plus one on some of the things like being genuine and being authentic to yourself and to others is the most important thing. I'm just going to add one or two more things. I think it's also, for me, the leadership is also about being very self-aware, right? When I say self-aware, it's also about what are the things which you are really good in and what are the things which can be complemented by some of your colleagues or maybe team members. I think that having that view or that perspective about yourself is very important. The second important thing for me is, like I said earlier also, having good emotional quotient is super important to be a good leader. The leader is demanding, challenging, asking a lot of things to ensure that we are achieving those organizational goals. But at the same time, giving enough care and taking care of the people who really matters for the organization and who really helps us to achieve this, right? So it's equally important to have very high emotional quotient. And the third important thing is what Karmin talked about, right? Creating these psychological safety nets with your team is super important. If your team cannot come and talk to you about the challenges or cannot disagree with you, then it doesn't make sense. I mean, you're just running one way. You don't have any diverse view of the team. So it's super important to have or create that safety net for your teams. That's another thing. And the fourth thing for me, the leadership, and which I'm still learning, and I'm glad that I have been far better than what I was, is building relationships. A leader is not a single leader, right? Leader always believe in a lot of other people, people who really help you ensure that that individual is growing. And that cannot be done if you're not building good relationships, whether it's your work or whether it's your personal life, right? And something which I'm learning here from our leaders like Puneet and a couple of other leaders. And recently we just had this leadership forum, 3 days of leadership forum in India. And it was super impressive to hear some of the leaders and cultural talks. And one of the learning for me is invest more on building relationships. That really is going to help you, whether you're going to be within that organization or even outside organization or even outside your work, right? And that's very important. So that's my perspective. Rohini, back to you.
Wow, there are so many good points coming out of this discussion. And definitely there is a lot of overlap, but then there are a lot of these good points, right? Like be your authentic self and be a people person. I mean, prefer culture and people more than just being I would again use that term, but bossy, and you're just raining down like, okay, where are the goals? Where are these? But building these relationships, because I know there's a saying, and I don't know how much you agree to it, but people don't leave companies, people leave bad bosses, right? Or bad managers. So definitely try to be a good human being, genuine person, build these relationships. And I think I'm just being a little biased, but as women, we do have these qualities in ourselves. We have this high emotional quotient, which we can bring to the table. So don't think of it as a weakness, but make it more of your strength, that you are someone who can be empathetic to your members of your team or to people that you work with, right? And I think that's amazing. So great positive note for women all over. So the next question I have is on personal branding, because that's the topic of this discussion. And I'll definitely start with Karmin. From your experience, what do you think personal branding, or why do you think personal branding is more important for women right now in today's world?
That's a great question. You know, why it's important, in my view, is actually it's important to the individual for the most part. And the reason I say that is because I really truly believe that, you know, in my career, in your career, just having a vision of where you want to go and what you want to be known for is just so important. I know from my perspective, there are kind of three things that I'll put my hand up and say, like, I work really, really hard. I love focusing on solving problems. I love delivering value, and I really value trusted partnerships and relationships. So they're the things for me that over time I've understood and realized that I'm pretty good at them. They're generally what a company or a business needs, and they are things that inspire me as well. So if I can authentically, you know, focus on those areas and bring value and demonstrate value in those areas, and they're, you know, they're really tied to the things that inspire me and my values, then I can actually be myself and really create that personal brand just through that exercise of how I show up, you know, the things that I focus on, the things that I deliver on, and being able to clearly articulate, you know, what your value is and what you want to be known for, I think is really actually quite a skill. It takes, I think, quite some time and some effort. And I would actually ask people to sit down and write a vision, like write it on a page or 3 pages or 6 pages, whatever takes you, but kind of write that vision for yourself within your career, and then being able to kind of, you know, hold that and really let that lead you, I think really helps people to start to create their personal brand in a very authentic way. And to me, it shouldn't actually be a lot of effort if it's authentic. It shouldn't be hard work, you know, to create and shape something that isn't actually really you. You know, that's a lot harder. So I think if we can do that and just continue to, you know, all the things that we've spoken about, show up courageously, you know, ask the problems, be present, you know, take the space up in a conversation or in a room, you know, that those things will actually come naturally, and your personal brand will build over time naturally as well.
Definitely. And Anna, what are your thoughts? I mean, you are a brand in itself. When people say Anna Green, we know who we are talking to. So definitely we would love to hear from you as well.
That's a very flattering of you to say so, although I'm not really sure if that's how I would want anyone to see me. But if I can be honest with you about that, you know, I've been very careful and strategic about the things that I align myself to. So as we all know, social media has changed the ball game in terms of who we are and who we can be in the workplace and who we can be online. And as we all know here at AWS, we're all about building digital businesses, right? So we know that this is what the future of business is going to look like. So with that in mind, you know, there are tools that you can use to help people understand who you are and to help people understand what you stand for. And when you have a platform as a leader, as all of us do, you know, that gives you an opportunity to talk about things that matter to you. And hopefully, I hope the things that I am aligned to are things that people know me for now. So people know that if there's a diversity and inclusion discussion around AWS, I will be there because I care about it. It's not hard for me to do it because it comes from my heart. And so to your point, Karmin, it's exactly that. It's making sure that the things that you align yourself with in your career and in the way in which you wish to construct your identity in a professional context are true to you. So that would be my advice. Just be careful in the way in which you construct that narrative to make sure that it aligns with who you actually are. And when it does, it resonates with people because they can tell that it's coming from a place of honesty. And I think for me, that's certainly been a guide in the way that I've approached everything in my career journey. Just be authentic.
Awesome. Great. So coming to Ekta, where do you think we can start thinking about, let's say there's someone in the audience who has never thought about creating their own personal brand. What do you think would be a good starting point? Like, I know you, Anna and Karmin gave some good points, like be authentic, know what drives you. But then is there anything else you would want to add as to with respect to personal brand? Would love to hear that.
Sure, Rohini, and just adding a few more points on the earlier question also. I think like you have been also very lucky to work with a lot of leaders and a lot of good managers. And somebody told me quite early in my career, a great leader told me that, Ekta, you should always be known for your legacy, what you leave behind. And leaving that legacy is super important. And that legacy you build up over a period of time, like Karmin said, you build it over a period of time by ensuring that you're delivering or you're authentic and you're genuine about the work which you have created. For example, I was one of the technical specialists for one of the product earlier in one of my organization. And anything in the company which used to be around very critical for that product, I used to be called for that. That was the legacy I had. But when you when you build a legacy, you have to be also very intentional that you can't be relying on that legacy all the time in your career, and you have to keep creating new legacies for yourself. For me, currently, if you look at, I mean, my forte has been the enterprise business, and I understand that enterprise business well. But did it happen over a period of time, or it just happened? It happened because of the work which an individual does. And the secondly, very important point that you have to be very intentional, like Anna said, right? You have to be intentional and strategic about these things. Are you really working and creating those relationships with enterprise customers? Or are you really vocal about what our enterprise customers are doing in the market? Or about yourself, what are 3 or 4 things which you are known for in the enterprise business? One of the things which my team always call me is, whenever there is the most complex situation or a very tough situation to be handled, either from the task which has been laid out or managing somebody, I'm actually known to get looped into those kind of conversations and ensure that I'm able to unblock some of those for my team, and then we are able to kind of proceed that. So I think 3 or 4 things which I would recommend to all our listeners. The first thing is be very good about storytelling. You should know how to tell a story about yourself, or if you're talking about, or if you're speaking on a particular topic, be very interesting. Ensure that you are able to articulate your point and you are able to communicate what you really meant. The second important thing, when you're creating your own brand, you have to be focused. Like Anna said, you have to be strategic, you have to be consistent, and you have to be focused. Ensure that you are creating that brand for yourself by ensuring that your belief and conviction, what you have in a particular or philosophy, what you believe in, you are vocal about that and you call that out, right? So that's again a very important one. And the third thing which Karmin already mentioned is to be about be genuine and ensure that you're always leaving a legacy behind. So that's going to be my message to our women participants.
This has been so amazing. I mean, definitely agree with all these points, because you have to be authentic. You have definitely a very good point on storytelling. Like, you should be able to explain what you do and what drives you in your own words. That is something no one else is going to be able to do for you ever, right? So the first thing to build your own brand is to know yourself and to build that storytelling. And I agree with Karmin, write it down. Just don't keep it in your mind, because it's just going to be lost in so many thoughts we have. So write it down, practice, change, and definitely a good point there as well on pivoting. Like, the technology landscape keeps changing and it's so fast paced, right? So have your own strength, but also be prepared to pivot if that is needed, right? Like, be with the course. So before I go to my final question, is there anything else you would like to add, all three of you? Great. So thank you so much for this amazing discussion. This has been by far my favorite discussion, like, ever. And I'm sure the viewers are going to be equally inspired as well. So before we wrap up, I do have one last question. What is this advice that you would want to give to women out there? And these women could be anyone who's just starting their career or anyone who's just been in the industry for a while and want to move up to the ladder. You pick whoever you want to address it to, but please, we want you to give some advice to the listeners on the call. And let's start with Anna. Let's go alphabetical again. Let's start with Anna.
So my advice for women would be, I think you probably have more skills right now than you give yourself credit for. Take a risk and put yourself forward for that job that you're not really sure you might have the right amount of skills for. Even if you fail, it is worth doing it for the experience. And more times than not, you're not going to fail. So take a chance on yourself. I have met so many women in my career and in my life who downplay their skill sets, and there's just no need for them to do that. I would encourage all women to see the value of the skills that they have and the work experience that they have and reach for the stars. There's no reason why any one of you can't be a leader. And I'm sure many of you already are.
Yeah.
That was definitely so awesome of you to say, Anna. Definitely. Over to you, Ekta.
I think I'm going to give you a couple of advices. The first one, I think we have spoken a lot. Be vocal. Be very vocal about your thoughts, about your opinions, also about your work. If you're assuming that your work will always speak for you, it may not happen all the time. And it's perfectly fine to talk even about your work. It should not be, or you should not think that you're bragging about it, but ensure that you are vocal. The second piece, which I'm going to talk, is have conviction in yourself. That's the most important thing. If somebody appreciates your work, take it as a compliment. Take it as a confidence in yourself that, yeah, this appreciation is coming because you as an individual have done a good thing. Of course, your team will be there, your colleagues will be there, but it's perfectly fine to give the credit to yourself. Women are not really very good. Sometimes I've seen in doing that. The third thing which I'm going to suggest is be very comfortable to say no. Some of the mistakes which I have done again, and I was not really comfortable in saying no. It's completely okay to create your own boundaries and let the world be aware about those boundaries. And when I say boundaries, it can be around timing. So for example, I just want my 6 to 7 block to be only every evening, only to be with me. And then after 7 o'clock, I again work. And that 6 to 7 is something which I really want to spend on myself, working out or going for a run or for a walk. But if you let the world be aware about it, you are going to be a happy soul. And trust me, your colleagues are going to respect that. So be comfortable in saying no. And the last thing, which even some of our other panel members said, is that be comfortable and don't shy away from taking larger roles. When I say larger roles, it's about the scope of the role, or it's also about maybe you're getting from an IC to manager. And when you try and do that, ensure that your manager and the leadership teams are aware about that so that they can work with you when you want to grow yourself in whatever role you want to do it. So these are some of the advices which I have for our audience.
Awesome. And Karmin, over to you.
Oh, that's just such incredible advice. I think there's probably 3 final things I would say. First is never stop working on knowing who you are and really understanding that for you and for your benefit. I think as part of that, and as you kind of work through or travel through your career and things like that, it's really important to decide whose opinion matters. So we talked a lot about other people's judgments, perspectives, unconscious bias. At the end of the day, I feel that it's really important that we make a conscious decision around sometimes an opinion can be background noise, and sometimes an opinion can actually be from someone that you value, someone that you admire, someone that you respect. And it's something that is, going to be a really important point of feedback. Now, I'm not saying that, we shouldn't be humble and just block out, everyone else's opinion. I think that it's just important to decide which ones are the most important. And then finally, I would actually encourage everybody to listen and watch leaders that you admire. And they don't have to necessarily be in the industry. They can be politicians, they can be authors, they can be, the lead business founders. Watch and listen to how they are and who they are. And for me, over the years, I've really found that to be inspirational. And it's really helped me to understand the things that I value and that I can also actually start to mirror, replicate, and practice myself. So it's a really good way of just, ramping up your knowledge and really expanding, I think, your mindset as well around leadership and what it is.
Wow. So these are my learnings, and I'm sure there are more. So I'm going to go and watch this again and get some notes. But it's about take a risk on yourself, because honey, who else will if you not yourself? So take a risk on yourself, give yourself that chance, step up if you want to go from an IC to a manager, if you want to get into bigger roles, if you want to do something different, step up, be your own cheerleader. I think that is what the consensus is, that you have to take in your wins and you have to cheer yourself up that yes, you can do it. So definitely cheer yourself, be your own cheerleader. And finally, if there is a lot of noise that is boggling you down and you feel that there is a lot of negativity around you, try to remove the noise from yourself and focus on what you can do on your strengths and work on those strengths. Obviously, you have to put in that effort and you have to put in the time. It cannot come without the hard work at all. So that's what I would love to summarize from this discussion. And really, really, thank you so much for all 3 of you, Anna, Ekta, and Karmin. I'm sure the viewers are going to be equally inspired and motivated to think like a leader. And definitely, we all are going to level up our personal brand as well. So thank you very much for this time. And thank you, everyone, for watching this. Definitely, we would love to hear from you. So do reach out to us via any means on LinkedIn. We all 3 are on LinkedIn, so do feel free to reach out to us and post any questions if you have. Thank you so much.